plans. We've added the information for the 2 and the 3 not covered in our transition course. And again, it's competency based, the full course, 160 to 200 hours is what we think a full course is going to take. But it's going to be competency based. It may take longer, it may take less if you've got people that have already got expanded scope. ACLS information can be part of the curriculum, and it doesn't have to be an additional certification. So the cost of bringing an ACLS instructor was reduced. Again, our foundation curriculum is the National Registry AEMT. It takes into consideration what they've already received in the 2 and 3 courses when you're building it, though, so you don't have to repeat that if you're doing the 2 and the 3 course, doing it after that. But if they're a 1, then obviously you're going to need to teach them all of that. The 90 to 100 hours estimated to go across these from one to the other, 60 to 100 hours, is maybe without the 12 week. So it really depends on where your students are. We're going to get better at estimating the hours as we do more classes. The problem is we haven't done enough of the Alaska specific to give you an exact. This National Registry to AMT is the ones that 50 to 60 hours. And I think 60 is a better thing because again, you're teaching them all of the 3 stuff that they didn't get. They don't have any of the 3 stuff in their course, the National Registry AEMT course. The written will be the written and practical for the National Registry, and that's why as AEMT instructors, you must also be a program director for National Registry so that you can set up a class and set up the testing for them. And we're still talking about doing a dynamic cardiac station but there's already 10 stations. Did you know that the AEMT has 10 stations? Holy crap, 10 skill stations at the National Registry level. So we were a little concerned about adding 1 more station to that. We do have resources on the repository, and they're already on there. The AEMT curriculum is done. The AEMT, we put the national standards there, the National Registry to AK, and the EMT3 to AK. And there is no transition course other than the National Registry to AK because we didn't have any previous AEMTs. So we built our two the due courses. I think you could take the EMT3 transition and adds the whole EMT3 course to it and make it two to AEMTs. You see what I'm saying? So you could say, okay, I'm going to build in an EMT3 course in this along with, because that's what they're missing in the AEMT anyway. You could just add the curriculum of the EMT3 course to make 2s to AEMT. So it is doable. We just didn't build the course.
Hey, Wilma.
Yeah.
You mentioned the NREMT part. So we will be, I don't know what the title is, but we will be able to sign off on an NREMT course, or these will count towards an NREMT course?
Yes. So you have to become a program director. That's what they call it, in order to be able to teach the AEMT course, the National Registry AEMT course.
So is that something we do separately through the NREMT then?
Yep, and I'll show you guys, maybe not today, but I was gonna go, if I have time before class ends, I wanted to go up and show you where you would go and do that.
Okay, great.
So who can teach it? So AEMTs can teach AEMTs. We don't currently have any Alaska certified AEMTs, so it's going to be paramedics and docs and nurses and PAs until we get some AEMTs with experience, because you do have to have 3 years experience. It doesn't have to be experience in Alaska, but you do have to be an Alaska AEMT to take the course. So that means you're going to have to become an Alaska AEMT. Because there is a difference. So we're not going to see a lot of AEMTs teaching AEMTs for a few years while we get the transitions. There are many pathways, and it is possible to go. Somebody asked me, is it possible to go to 2 to AEMT? Absolutely. I would teach the 3 course within it though, because that's the stuff they're missing. But that means that they have to be transitioned 2s. and transition threes. You don't want to add that mix if you're going to start messing around with what we've put together. There's a good potential for hybrid, but you're going to have some skills sections on this. So I think it would be difficult to do all of the skills. You'd still have to have the ability to come in and do skills. So EMT to AEMT, our pilot course was 90 to 100 hours. EMT1 to AEMT, it's recommended 160 to 250. I'm thinking it's going to be more like 200 to 250 if you're going to get this information in. There is no requirement for clinicals. National Registry requires or recommends clinicals. They don't require it. So it isn't required, but it's recommended. And I kind of agree at this level that it would be nice if we could get them out into an ambulance to work with other ALS folks and paramedics to get some of these skills honed. There are new prerequisites. This is all different, but the prerequisite depends on what level they are. They don't have to do the additional other than the 10 patient contacts and 5 patient care reports. Course completion requirements are National Registry. Oh, I got that in there twice. How do I go about doing a psychomotor exam? This is where I will take you in just a second, and if we still have time. And then they do have to complete a portfolio in the class. So there is a portfolio for AEMTs. And we aren't talking about doing any scenario-based testing at the AEMT level until National goes to that. The reason we've gone to scenario-based is National is moving to scenario-based. And they are not required to take PHTLS or ITLS or any of those in the class, but we recommended in the curriculum that you could teach the whole trauma section by just doing an ITLS class, because these guys already have the basics and the ITLS will give them everything they need to know to pass the National Registry exam. So if you don't want to have to write your trauma stuff, do an ITLS or PHTLS and you're done. Once they become National Alaska AEMTs, they do not have to keep their National Registry, but it's a good idea for them to do it. You can recertify as an Alaska AEMT without National Registry. So let's see if I can go, that this will take me out to that. This is, this is just actually the exam, they actually have a step-by-step of how you go through and set up an exam as a program director, but, and they actually walk you through the process of what you need to do to set the exam up. But prior to doing that, let's go take a quick look at, all right, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Or my Google screen, I mean?
No.
No.
That's what I was afraid of. I'm gonna do a new share here and share this. All right. So now you should be able to see it, right?
Yep.
All right,
Yep.
let's pull this up. And, oh, they're 50 years old, look at them. So if I am currently a program director, and as a program director, I can go in and request exam materials, let them know that I want or set up an exam. So portfolio and scenario exams, and they talk, and you actually come in here and you go in and you request an exam for your class. But to get to here, you need to actually apply to become a program director. See, I'm a program director, training officer, and an exam coordinator. So I can request exams for my class. This is where you go to do that. And this is where you request the exam. So you need to be both an exam coordinator and a program director. And you'll just submit an application. And so since I already have it, I don't have that option, but when you log in, you can go in and just do a search for program director application, and it comes up and you complete the application. It will come to the state to verify that you are currently an ALS instructor in the state of Alaska before they'll allow you to be an ALS instructor for them. And so you need to make sure. And if you have any other ALS, like if you're an RN, or if you are a doc, or if you teach ACLS, anything advanced, if you already are doing that, if you put that in, the quicker the request goes through. But Karen has to verify that you are currently an ALS instructor in Alaska, and then that makes it go much easier. And then you'll get this ability to be both a program director and an exam coordinator. And then you can request an exam. Now the certifying officers are not done through the regions in most cases. You can work through Interior Region to get a National Registry certified officer. If you want Ashley to help you, she's more than happy to guide you to who our National Registry folks are. And we actually pay National Registry certifying officers because of it is part of the scope. So we help you arrange them. But you can go out and arrange your own. And so in your region, and I think it's different in every region, and you need to find out from your regional office how they want you to go about it. You may have to contract with a National Registry certifying officer yourself. And then the National Registry certifying officer, you've identified who it is. You have to ask them first. Then when you ask for the exam and you set up the exam, you tell them how many students you're going to have. You have to know that ahead of time and who the certifying officer is. The tests get mailed to the certifying officer, not to you. And so all the paperwork goes to that certifying officer. That's why you need to get their permission first. Make sure you've made the arrangements. They don't want to get a surprise. Oh, surprise. So make sure you check with your region.
And
Yes.
AEMT is online only. There is no paper test.
There is no paper test, but but I'm talking about the practical exam, the psychomotor.
Right.
So yes, the AEMT. Now, right now, they have broken it away from the Pearson VUE requirement, and they're actually doing some in-home tests where you have a protected browser and they're monitoring it. There's all kinds of stuff that they're doing through COVID. And I'm hoping that they keep that up, because that's wonderful for Alaska, because we don't have Pearson VUE everywhere, which is where we've had to set our tests up before our written exams.
Wilma?
Yeah.
Is this something that BLS instructors can register and do as well?
Absolutely. And I was going to just point that out, so I'm glad you reminded me. If you want to do the National Registry for your basic classes so that they have both, or better yet, you let them take the national exam and that counts for their state. Either way, you can go in and do the same thing. I would definitely make myself a program director, even if I'm not an exam coordinator. And the reason is as a program director, if you go through and you have them take the Alaska test and they become EMT ones, and now they want to be National Registry EMT ones, they have to identify who their program director was. Some of our folks here don't take the time to go through that, and so they just identify Ashley as their program director because she's our training coordinator. And then we have to go in and tell them that yes, they've successfully completed an EMT1 class and course. And that's okay if it's our instructors and we know that they've taught the class, but it's best if you aren't as closely affiliated with your regional office. Like my folks are all just within driving distance of us, so they know us and we know them. Southern region may not be willing to do that, so you may want to become your own program coordinator director. So then the students, when they go in and they register to get reciprocity for the MT1, they can identify you as the program director. Then you are required. So I'll show you what happens as a program director. I need to go in and verify that folks have completed my course. So if I get somebody, a lot of times people don't tell me when they have done this. So I come in and I go, oh, this guy wants me to verify their course for them. And I didn't know that they have actually put it in, but I'll select this and I'll get a list of people down here that have put in an application and I have to verify that they have in fact completed my course. That's how they get their Alaska. So as an EMT1 or an AEMT, you have to come in here and I actually have them send me an email if I've got somebody coming in, but sometimes those emails go into my spam and I have no idea why Google picks it sometimes and not every time. It's beyond me, it's beyond my guess. But
Hey,
you
Wilma,
have to
can I
verify.
interject?
Pardon?
Can I interject for a minute?
Sure.
I'm totally fine if you guys use me, have your students select my name. But like Wilma said, we don't get notified. So I'm trying to make it a habit to check my verifications on National Registry monthly. But if you guys wouldn't mind, if you know your students are taking the National Registry, if you would just email us along with their, when you sign up for our test, or setting up the test, I mean, if you could just email us which students are taking them or not taking it, that would be really helpful when I go in and verify. Because otherwise I get students from South Carolina and New Jersey and somebody from Anchorage, and it's like, well, I don't know if it's our person or if they were in your class or if they just selected the wrong name. I'm not sure. So then I would have to track them down. So it just saved me a lot of work if you guys could send me those and let me know your students applied so I can get them approved right away.
Optimally, if you are going to, on a regular basis, do National Registry stuff, become a program director. If it's only an occasional student that says, hey, I'd like to take my National Registry, then please feel free to use us as a resource as the program director. And Ashley, they can select Ashley. Ashley can go in and see if they, and go in and verify that they actually completed an EMT1 in Alaska for those that she doesn't know the name of, but it's a whole lot better if an instructor sends us a list of folks that are going to do it and use her name.
And for, I'll throw in my 2 cents of, if you guys can encourage your students to take it, nobody wants to take an extra test at the time that they're doing this, but if they ever move to a different state, this is going to make their life and the whole re-credentialing or reciprocity process 100 times easier if they do it. If they don't, then they could potentially risk having to start all over again at the new state.
Right. And actually, as EMT1s, they don't have to take the National Registry test if they've already taken the Alaska. National Registry accepts Alaska's. Yeah.
Because some of the states like Colorado is considered a National Registry state, which means that when you take the National Registry exam as your qualifying test, and
Right.
you get that, and then the benefit is if you have a National Registry from another state, then reciprocity is super simple because you're basically just transferring straight in.
Right. And National Registry has authorized Alaska to be what they consider to be a National Registry state, but they let us do our own testing because of logistics. So if you take an Alaska EMT1 written and practical, it counts for the national. You don't have to take another test.
And Doc, you should register as a medical director too, besides a program director, because
Yeah,
AEM
I am. I'm
Good.
in there several times for other things, just not as a program director or instructor, but I've got a few other pieces in there. But yeah, I've just seen, especially for like the coasties and some of the fire guys and the militaries, they'll have their EMT in one state, they get transferred to a different state, and then they're not able to function at their usual level simply because they don't have a way of getting reciprocity because they never took their National Registry exam.
Right. Yep.
So here's the information on program directors. This is what you need to do. I'll put this link in the chat because this is where you need to go. You create your account, how you add the role to your National Registry account, associate it with associate as program director to other programs. You guys can associate to Interior if you don't want to make your own agency as separate. You can just associate to Interior. That's how they get the testing done, and your tests will come to Interior. And then Dave likes them to come to Interior. Gordon likes them to come to us, and then they come in here and they set them up. And so if you're in the Interior, you're more than welcome to use us as the as we're listed there as a program. We are an EMS education program, and that's how you get associated with us, and then that's where the exam comes. And so this page gives you all the information that you need to be able to get set up for National Registry. And it's a pretty simple process. And there is the link. Now, and Ashley, you covered medical direction, correct?
No, you said you did that earlier. So I'm sorry, I
Well,
misunderstood.
No, okay. Just wanted to make sure you guys understand the role of a medical director in a course versus the role of a medical director on their certification. I think I did kind of expound upon it a little bit. A medical director for the course is saying that he is there to sponsor the students to do stuff within your classroom. We can get yourself into trouble is when you allow students to go out into their departments to do their IV sticks. I need to verify that they have a medical director at their department that's willing to take on that role, because my medical director of my course may or may not want to take on that role. Now, luckily, my medical director, our course medical director, is also the medical director for half of our departments. And so she's willing to do both. But you need to make sure your course medical director knows what his responsibility, he or she's responsibility is, and what, and ask them specifically, can they go to their departments, or do you just want them to be in the class to do IV sticks?
So does
and
that
make sure
mean that,
it's clear.
so
Pardon?
if I had a course and they rode with manage's department,
Mhm.
that we could choose whether or not it was a medical direction under me or her, depending on the situation, or?
Yeah, in the classroom, they're under you and you're guiding them.
Yeah, but
what
when they
they
ride
need to-
with her agency, let's say
and
it wasn't her and she wasn't up for being their director, could they still stick somebody under my direction even though they're riding with her agency?
No, that's why well, yes, I take that back. If you said, I don't care what setting you do to do the IVs, I'm your sponsor for it.
Yeah.
Then
During the
they
class.
could, during the class. But as soon
Right.
as the classroom is over with, you're no longer sponsoring.
Yeah, no, that part I got. It was during the class part if I could.
You could authorize them to do it outside of the classroom.
Okay.
But you want to make sure your medical director understands that, because they may not, I wouldn't assume that. I would want a clear understanding with the medical director exactly where they wanted the students to do the IVs under the auspices of the instructor, or allow them to do that in their department under their training officer. So just make sure your medical director understands what their role is and that they agree to it.
Yeah, I mean, just for everybody else, it's not a doc or hasn't worked with one of, the medical directors. I've worked with some that are super engaged, which is what I'd like to think of myself, but there's other ones that, like, I'm working with a group in Colorado. I haven't heard from one of them for like 6 months, and we've been developing new protocols for 6 months. So, their level of involvement and awareness of what's going on is hugely variable.
And you don't want to ever assume that they are okay with it. Just make
Right.
sure that they understand what their role is.
Because they will all
and
go up and
go ahead.
you said that because they'll all of a sudden show up and be vocal if they don't like something.
Yep. So you want to make sure that they understand. They should know exactly what curriculum you're teaching. Even if they don't care to ever look at it, you've got a record that you let them know. So even if your doc doesn't, whatever you want to do, be sure that you still make sure he knows what's going on, because you don't want him or she to be blindsided. And you don't want to be blindsided when the doc says, hey, I didn't authorize that. So there is a difference between a medical director in a course and medical director on certification. So just be aware of that. And when I do a class, I do a bloodborne pathogen that says, I am not going to be your medical officer if you get exposed. Your medical officer is your department's medical officer. And so if you get it exposed, I will write it up and I'll send it to your medical officer at your department. So you understand that what a medical officer is. They're the one that's at follow-up to make sure that they get checked, that if there's any requirements for recheck, that's all done by the medical officer. I'm not, as the instructor, going to be their medical officer for my bloodborne pathogen plan. So each one of them are responsible to go back to the department, and the department agrees to that. Ashley has a form that the department agrees to that at the beginning of the course. Because we teach multiple departments in our classes. We just want to
Well-
make sure that folks understand that.
Great question. They don't have to be with an agency to take a 2 or 3 class anymore. They just can't practice after class. So what do you do?
You know, that is a very good question. And if it were me, I would want to make sure that they understand that that the liability is on them. And that they are going to, their medical officer then becomes their private physician.
No problem.
And we don't cover workman's comp for them either. We let the departments do that. Again, we have it in writing. And so just bear in mind when you're doing advanced classes, this is invasive stuff. So you want to have liability insurance, you want to have a clear, clean syllabus, and students understand what their roles are. And that is all I have to talk about for advanced. Do you feel like you can just go out there and teach them now?
No.
Probably not. But that's okay. I am here as a reference.
So, well, I don't know if you have more to mention, but you know, I think the liability insurance is something that you seriously want to think about, because you know, it's just sad that we are exposed. But you know, there's the one that I got, which you know is more extensive just because I'm the director, but it was one that was advertised through, I can't remember if it was the NAEMT, but it definitely was the NAEMSP. And they were awesome to work with. They're super responsive. You know, thankfully I haven't been sued, but I've had to report a couple cases, you know, to them, as you're supposed to when things come up, and they've been really good to work with. So I think, you know, it's not like getting physician malpractice insurance. The cost isn't through the roof, and for the small amount that it costs, it could very well be worth the money spent.
This is an article that GEMS put out about some basic liability information for instructors. I'm just going to send it on to you, and then they give you some pointers and some ideas of where you can go to get insurance.
So the guy that they advertised through one of those sites, he was a paramedic, I believe, himself, and he's based out of New Mexico. And you know, he had it was more than an ad. It was an article like this in NAEMSP. I don't know how many different, you know, and it's not his. He does it through NFP, which is a huge national insurance firm that does all kinds of things. But
and this is another organization that you can, when you become a member of it, you have options for really inexpensive. The membership is like, I think, $75 a year, but then you have options for really inexpensive liability insurance as an instructor. And I'll tell you what, this is a good organization in that when you become a member, they have a site where you can get all kinds of PowerPoints and stuff. You have to log into it as member only. And there you get some great information for classes. So it's a great organization. And I've attended several of their symposiums, and it's good information. It's called the Instructor Toolbox, and there's all kinds of really cool stuff. The Trading Post, that's what it is. Over 1,000 files of PowerPoints and handouts and games and lots of fun things that you have access to. So I've given you that. And we are looking now at tomorrow, starting with talking about the exam. Is there any questions that you have for us for today before we call it a day?
I just have a personal one for you, Wilma, when everybody's
Sure.
done.
Okay, we can do that at the end. I'm here. Anybody else?
Nope.
All righty. We'll see you at 8:30 tomorrow. We're getting out a little early. No, a little late. Oh, well.
Safe.
No, 5:30. We had it down for 5:30, so we're doing good.
Yeah, we're good.
We're good. All righty, folks. And I'll stay on.
Thanks again.
Bye.
Thank you.
So Wilma, all I'm curious about is, so I'm trying to get all my EMT quals back, but now that there's this AEMT, I'm looking just to go straight to AEMT so I can teach at the
Mhm.
2 level for the Alaska smoke jumpers. And I was
Mhm.
curious if you had any guidance to who I should look to or talk to about finding a course,
Are
maybe
you
next
in,
fall,
are
next
you in the
winter.
interior?
Well, I live in Anchorage in the winter, but I fight fire. Our base is at Fort Wayne right there. I'm there all summer long, but I can go wherever, wherever the class is.
So
But
I'm thinking, well, I'm gonna say I don't know if they're going to, I think they may start AEMT classes at the University of Anchorage now that it is a certification. The reason they didn't do them before is because there was no state certification, so they saw no job pathway for them.
mhm.
And so they didn't see any reason for teaching the course. That may be an option. The other is that we are hoping to offer some, not right away. We've got, we've
Yep.
got,
Overworked.
yeah, we've got our hands full with just getting the rollout, but we do hope to maybe do in the fall of next year an AEMT course. But it's, again, it's, we have a contract. We may have to do one in the spring if we get the contract, but and we would let you know. We'll have it on our website. Now it's paid for by the Fairbanks North Star Borough, but we can allow non-borough folks in with a fee. So
Oh, wow. So you guys are going to teach for free to locals, to the
right.
borough.
Well, it's free to locals that are a part of the department. So if you're with the local department, the borough is paying for it
Gotcha,
for local
gotcha.
departments.
For
Yeah.
a
Do you have
borough
any idea
department.
what the cost of the class is? Like a couple grand?
No idea.
Yeah.
Haven't
no
had a
worries.
chance to even look at it yet.
Yeah, no worries. No, I wasn't anticipating that I'd even have an opportunity till like 2023, but it sounds
No,
like
we're
I would.
looking, it's gonna be part of our contract, so we're gonna have to teach classes next year. It just may
Gotcha.
not, we just aren't sure, because we are limited with instructors as well.
Do you know if UAA does teach this class, if they can teach it in one semester?
Yeah,
They don't
it's a,
teach- Is it a one semester?
yeah,
that's
or
a
at
lot
least
for one
that UAF does. UAF
gotcha.
does the 1 semester.
Okay.
Yeah, the
Gotcha.
reason
Because I
that
was
they
on
have
the.
not taught it,
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
yeah, the reason they have not taught it was specifically because there was no Alaska certification.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I'll have to figure that out. Because if I could just go from 1 to AEMTs, because my plan was to get my 2 and then my 3 and so on and so forth. I guess I'll get my 2 in the spring, probably before there's even an AEMT class. But I was looking on the state of Alaska EMT portal, and they have Southern Region down as they have a class scheduled next year, but their website doesn't show that.
The
either.
reason is they lost all of their trainers.
Oh,
They
gotcha.
haven't been able to
Unexpectedly.
fill that. Yeah,
That's like classic Southern Region. Okay.
yeah, they lost all their trainers, and so they don't know what they're doing for those classes right now.
Okay. No worries. Well, I appreciate everything. Thank you.
Good,
Have a good one.
you guys too. See you tomorrow.
Hi, Riley.
How's
You
it
got a-
going?
You got a question or?
I was just wondering, where's the video gonna be?
I'm working on putting it on, or at least the first day on the Google Classroom.
Okay.
Well, I'm YouTubing it and then I'm put the link to YouTube, but it takes
Okay.
a lot longer than I thought. I thought it was just a simple upload, but I've been sitting at 95% for an hour now.
Okay, cool.
So
I'll keep checking throughout the week then.
yeah, yep. And
All
I'll
right.
do this one. It came through in the evening, so I bet this one will too. And so I'll work on it tomorrow.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, have a good night.
Awesome. Thanks, Ashley. Yep, you too.
Uploading to our YouTube.